Frank Warren is clearly trying to build a rivalry between these two guys, his two young heavyweights, Nathan Gorman, who is currently 12-0, and Daniel Dubois, who is currently 7-0. Gorman with 10 KOs, Dubois with 7 out of 7. Now, I just want to compare these two guys and talk about some of their strengths and possible weaknesses as we build up to hopefully a showdown between the two men. Gorman, first of all, is a little further on in his career. He's 21 years old, which is a year older than Dubois. He's 6'3", so he's like maybe an inch and a half shorter. 73-inch reach according to BoxRec, which is a hell of a lot shorter than Dubois' reach. I'm not exactly sure what Dubois is. It don't say on BoxRec. Prior to his fight in the ring, when it gives the tail of the tape, it's listed Dubois' reach as 78 inches before, which seems a little on the short side to me. Perhaps he's just one of those guys with long arms, but not a particularly long reach. So, and again, I always have to say, if you don't know the difference between arm length and reach, you need to go Google it. Anyway, those are Nathan Gorman's physical stats. 73-inch reach is short, but that's what gives him his good hand speed, or partly anyway. And you look at the guys he's faced, you have to say that Gorman has faced, or he's fought more times than Dubois. He's got nearly double the amount of fights, but he has faced better opposition than Dubois has so far. Even a guy like Kamil Sokolovsky, who has a really poor record, but in reality, Sokolovsky is actually a pretty dangerous journeyman who does come to fight. We saw Kamil Sokolovsky against David Price fairly recently, for example, and Price never came close to putting Sokolovsky down or knocking him out. Sokolovsky, you know, recently fought people like Tom Little. Last year, David Price, he fought Martin Bakoli, who I believe that's Ilunga Makabu's brother. Correct me if I'm wrong. And he's being touted as quite a prospect. So he fought him. He knocked out AJ Carter. He fought Gary Cornish. He fought, as I see, you know, on his record there, Nathan Gorman, Dominic Akelade. He's fought a lot of people. He fought Dominic Akelade twice, actually. Drew with Akelade in the first fight. That was a decent result for him. Fought Dylan White very early on in his career. So Sokolovsky is a dangerous journeyman and better than his record suggests, I would say. So he fought him. I would say he's better than anybody that Daniel Dubois has fought so far. And certainly, Nathan Gorman has fought the likes of Dominic Akinladi and Mohamed Saltby. And Akinladi and Saltby, again, are better than anybody who Daniel Dubois has fought so far. Akinladi's a tough guy. He's a strong guy, tough guy. He was a pretty decent amateur. So that's a decent win there for Nathan Gorman. And Gorman has been the distance. You know, as you see in the Akinladi fight, he went 10 rounds. So he has those rounds under his belt. He knows he can do the distance if need be. So that's Nathan Gorman's record. Just briefly looking at his record, I'll break down his style in a little bit. Just moving over to Dubois. Dubois 7-0, 7 KOs so far. The level of opposition, however, has been poor. He hasn't really fought anyone who's come to fight back yet. DL Jones, I guess, had a little bit of a go, but everybody else got just blown out the water because they didn't appear to come with that much ambition. And, you know, as soon as a few good shots from Dubois landed, they were either out cold or they had given up any type of heart or whatever that they may have come with and resigned themselves to defeat. Now, Dubois, 20 years old, 6'5" or slightly under that. Tail of the tape when he's in the ring, in some of his fights, lists him as 6'4.5" or whatever, but it's neither here nor there. He's around 6'5", 6'4", 6'5". Looks to have fairly long arms, even though they only say he's got a 78-inch reach. And as I say, you look at the quality of opposition, it's been poor so far, but he's only 7-0. So you can't really grumble too much. You wonder who they're going to match him against in terms of trying to give him some rounds and step him up a little bit. I personally think that the guy who I was talking about earlier, Kamil Sokolovsky, will be a good match for Dubois at this point, because Sokolovsky still has, again, a terrible record, but he still has some ambition, you know, Sokolovsky. At the moment, Sokolovsky is, well, as you can see, he's 4-12 with 2 draws, but he has ambition when you watch him fight. You can watch the David Price fight and tell me Sokolovsky is a knockover job. So, yeah, Dubois against Sokolovsky, I think, will be a decent little step up for him from the likes of D.L. Jones, and we'll see where we go from there. Very young guy, very highly touted. Nathan Gorman has been saying that he thinks he can beat Daniel Dubois and beat him quite easily. Yeah, that's what Nathan Gorman has been saying lately. And look, he sparred the man. He apparently roomed with the man when they were amateurs. So he has every right to have that opinion. You know, I know a lot of people are scoffing at the things that Nathan Gorman is saying about Daniel Dubois, but he's been in the ring with the guy. He's felt his power, and he feels like he can take him in a real fight. I know sparring isn't always reflective of what's going to take place in a real fight, but you have to understand these are two guys of a similar amateur background, and they're both prospects in the pro game. It's not like one of them is vastly experienced and has been at the top level and has done this, that, and the other one hasn't. No, they're both inexperienced guys. So you can't imagine that what took place in those sparring sessions would be too far removed from what may take place in a pro ring. Both guys are very young, inexperienced. Which one of them will have improved more from the sparring sessions? The guy who has more fights, Nathan Gorman, or the guy who's more highly touted, I guess because of his punching power, Daniel Dubois? Now, briefly talking about their strengths and weaknesses style-wise, Nathan Gorman, the shorter guy, has got quicker hands than Daniel Dubois. I think he's got better boxing ability in terms of counter punching and setting up certain punches. Daniel Dubois has got a better jab, seems to have longer arms, probably more powerful in terms of single punch power. And Dubois, not really much of an inside game. He does try and fight on the inside, but he looks quite sloppy when he's fighting up close. He certainly did it his last fight against D.L. Jones. So I'm not going to say he can't fight inside, but it's not particularly pretty. Nathan Gorman, when he slugs away on the inside, it looks a lot more structured, and I guess that's because of the fact that he's got much shorter arms than Dubois, so it makes it easier getting those short punches off and looking neat and tidy up close, whereas Dubois, you know, kind of looked a little bit of an octopus against D.L. Jones when he was trying to get short punches off. But yeah, Dubois, you have to imagine, is going to be more effective at long range than Nathan Gorman, with his very solid jab, his good straight right hand. Yeah, he's got decent punch selection from what I've seen of him so far. So yeah, a fight between the two of them would be Gorman trying to get things up close and Dubois doing his best work on the outside. But Dubois, again, he is willing to engage up close. He's not one of these big heavyweights who just tries to shut you down on the inside or looks lost on the inside. He will try and slug it out from what we've seen of him so far anyway. Certainly against D.L. Jones, he tried to slug it out up close and he got the better of it ultimately. So, I'd like to see Nathan Gorman versus Dubois at some stage for a British title maybe. Hopefully Frank Warren will do it. Hopefully he's not going to try and get these guys to win world titles before he'll match them up against each other, or, you know, even in a world title eliminator. Hopefully we can see it at British level. Dubois officially is still too young to contest for the British title. I think it's, 21, 22? You have to be to fight for the British title. I can't remember the age restriction now. But Frank Warren has been lobbying the British Board of Boxing Control to get that changed. And as I say, Nathan Gorman, a year older, will be eligible for it now if he's not in a year's time. So yeah, let me know what you think of these two fighters. Who would you pick right now if they were to face off? I don't want to say that I'm more impressed by Nathan Gorman at the moment. But what I will say is, I know more about Nathan Gorman because he's had more fights and it's been against better opponents than Daniel Dubois has faced so far. So I know people are screaming from the rooftops that Dubois is the next best thing, but until he fights some opposition, at least at the level of the guys Gorman has fought, then I can't really say that he's going to be as good as Gorman or better than Gorman, because I need to see how he does against similar opposition. And obviously styles make fights and they've got different styles. So just because one of them dispatches of the opposition more easily than the other, it don't necessarily reflect on how a fight would go between Dubois and Gorman. Obviously, I take that into account, but still, it'll give you some type of yardstick, some type of barometer. So, yeah, I know more about Gorman. He's had more fights. He's been in there with tougher opposition. He's been the distance with Dominic Akaladi, so we know he can go 10 and, you know, what have you. Dubois, we don't know any of that about him yet. So, let's find out some more, and then it will make it easier if the two guys do face each other in the ring down the line to make a prediction on it. So let me know what you think in the comment section below, people. Who will be the better heavyweight, Nathan Gorman or Daniel Dubois? And if they did fight anytime in the near future, who would you be picking to win and by what method? Let me know in the comment section, people. It's happening. I'm out.